Do you want to know how to play with your child at home? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, and education, all through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about play. So in this video, we're going to be talking about what the home environment usually feels like for the child and for the parent, and what you can do to bring that element of play to your house. So there are a lot of things that happen at home. There's the chore time that we have to do, the educational time, which sometimes looks like homework, or for other people, if they're homeschooling, it might be like, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to do these school things. So there's all the checkoff lists, and then there's like the personal hygiene things and just the picking up and running people places. And so sometimes, because all those things are associated with home, we go out to do things with the children. But did you know that many of the children are actually craving to be home and do things at home? I have a friend who told me that her son finally said to her one day, after years and years of going places, "Mom, why can't we ever just have fun and play at home?" And at that point, she actually told me, you know what? I don't really know what to do at home, and I feel like I want to get out of the house. So if you find yourself in that circumstance, then you could feel a little bit like this friend of mine. I think there are some parents who love to go, go, go. They love to have the stimulation from outside, and they wonder if they can create enough stimulation inside the home for it to be entertaining and enjoyable for the child. So one thing that you need to understand about children is that they don't necessarily have to be stimulated all the time to be entertained. In fact, things that are educational can be very entertaining. Learning adult skills, life skills, hearing stories from your life, these are all things that can be entertaining for a person. In fact, when I would sit and read to my children, we could sit for hours and read and discuss a book. Now, obviously, we had to work up to that. Some people might not be used to sitting for that type of period of time. But if it's something that's engaging, that you both enjoy, and that you both want to discuss while reading it, it can actually be a lot of fun. But never quite as fun as when I would just show them pictures of when I was young, or in years gone by, maybe pictures of when they were young, and tell them stories about their life, tell them stories about my life. Those types of stories are the very best and most engaging, because they seem to strike at the very identity of the person. And every person is always looking for who they are a little bit more. And so helping them understand identity through personal stories is one way that you can really get them engaged. Now, I remember doing things with my parents that may not seem like play, but were actually the times that created the most memories. If you've already subscribed to this channel, you know I talk a lot about work and teaching children to work. In fact, BYU TV made a whole episode of their Parents in Progress program with me on it, talking about teaching children to work and helping them enjoy work, actually. So I'm known for that a lot. But I have to tell you something, that when I think about my experiences with my parents, I remember times when we played, but most of the time, the greatest memories, the ones that are the fondest to me, are the times when we worked together. So don't neglect work as a very positive interaction, a source of play that could actually be meaningful to you and your child. When a child works alongside their parent, it oftentimes feels like play to them, because they're learning new things and having new experiences. And they are gaining adult skills. So think of things that you've got coming up. Can you just take your children along with you? Can you say, you know what, I'm going to paint the cupboards because we're remodeling the kitchen. Can you bring them into that painting process somehow? Or, you know, I want to take some cookies over to a neighbor. Can you bring them into the cookie making process with you? There are so many wonderful things. You might be mending a button. Well, teach them how to do it too. Teach them how to sew a button. Anything that you can teach a child is going to be beneficial. Recently, I did a home visit for a family, and when I was there, one of the young girls. She was 11 years old. She showed me a piece of clothing that she was sewing for herself. So she had a person in her life, a mentor, who would engage in education and playing with her. And this person found out that this young 11-year-old liked the idea of design and clothing design. And she said, you know, I could teach you how to sew something. Suddenly the young girl was so excited. So this is one of her most favorite things to do, is to sit down and work on this project. So I guess what I'm saying is that almost any project, whether it's specifically play, specifically sport, specifically art, specifically work, could all actually be considered play with children, as long as you're engaged. You are the piece that makes something seem like a good experience and like play. Now, of course, you can imagine with your children, and you can, play the types of games where you pretend to be different characters, and you are, having a tea party, or you're fighting a fire, or going hunting. All of those types of pretend activities are fun. You can build things with your children, like with Legos and blocks, and with wires and straws and tape, and you can invent different ways to blow bubbles, and you can make sand castles, and all those types of things are engaging for children, and they're usually things that you can do right at your house. Sometimes maybe you don't have a sandbox, but you could get a box, you could put some sand in it or some cornmeal in it, and you can start constructing and creating something out of what you've got. One of my favorite activities that I've talked about on this channel before is doing oobleck. So I don't know if you know what oobleck is. It's based off a Dr. Seuss book called Oobleck. Basically, it's when you take cornstarch and water and you make a non-Newtonian solid, and you make this gel type substance where if you hit it, it's hard, but if you sink slowly into it, it's soft and it's gooey, and you can do all kinds of things with it. If you just have cornstarch and water and a little bowl at home, you can play with oobleck and last for hours. You could make salt dough. Do you have a recipe for a good salt dough? If not, look one up. I'm sure there's one out there. The one I usually use, I think, uses like cream of tartar or alum or something like that. You can put different smells into it, and you can play with your cooking utensils that you have in your kitchen just on that salt dough, and you can play with them that way. You can get pipe cleaners and little puffy balls, and you can, tie them together and glue them together and make creative craft projects. I used to keep a little bin in a closet, and this was my craft bin, and it had pickup sticks and popsicle sticks and pipe cleaners, and it had like different types of glue and markers and googly eyes and stuff, and we would make things to hang on the tree at Christmas time, and we would do all kinds of things with the things, the noodles and whatever that were in this just bin of things to create with, which was so fun. So you could make a craft bin and you could go to that. But again, who's doing it with the child? You are. Now here's a really easy one. If you've got parchment paper or butcher paper, maybe even aluminum foil would work, but I like a white surface if I can. And you just make pudding, and then you finger paint with the pudding. Honestly, this is fun for all ages, even adults. And you know what? You can lick your fingers, which is super fun. You could make Bob Ross paintings, not out of finger paint. Well, I mean, you could try, I guess, but you could do that also, right? There's so many things that you can do on an art side. Sports are always good too. Whether your child thinks they're sporty or not, whether you think you're sporty or not, you should actually try sports. It just helps a person become culturally literate. So remember that. There are so many things to do. I actually have whole videos about things that you can do in the summertime that are fun with your children. There are things that you can do at home, in the backyard. You may want to look at some of those other videos. But honestly, there's videos on this channel about relationships and strengthening your relationships with your children. And that's probably where I would point you first. If you've got a good bond and a good relationship with your child, then almost anything you do is going to feel like fun, and it's going to be play. But you have to want to do it. So work first on the inside desire, and then create that environment on the outside. It's totally possible. So click on the links to any videos on this channel about relationship development, and I think you will find more that can help you have more meaningful playtime.